There's those moments where I'm trying to listen to God and I think, okay, that idea that just popped in my head, is that God? Is that, just my conscience? So how do you discern which is God's voice? What do you tell people when it comes to experiencing God? I feel like that term got very popular about 30 years ago when that workbook came out by Henry Blackaby, who just recently passed away. And it was a great work, but when it comes to experiencing and particularly enjoying God, how are you helping people kind of discern that? What would you tell our listeners about? Because you've already mentioned he's probably speaking to you a lot more than you think he is. How would we experience that? How would we enjoy that?
Well, there's a lot of ways I can answer that, and I will in a minute. But first, especially when I'm on retreat with someone, here's what I do, Rusty, I say, if I gave you an assignment to go out and I gave you an hour and said to go out and have fun with God, what would you do? So, Rusty, let's pretend we're at a retreat center, and
Okay.
I say that to you. What would you say?
I would think that would involve some kind of nature hike.
Okay. And it could, most likely it would be good if you walked slowly, but you know what? You may find yourself chasing a squirrel. I don't know. But just to be able to quiet our mind and to be able to hear God, because that's really what it takes is a certain stillness and a noticing what comes to me, especially what doesn't sound like me. And generally, and it can be very kinesthetic. In fact, one of the ways where I hear God best is hiking. They think, I have to sit in a chair and because we teach a lot on solitude and silence. But that's solitude and silence. That's what I'm doing when I'm hiking.
Mm-hmm.
So, but shutting off your phone, and being able to just be attentive to God. And one of the best ways to really experience God is to start asking God questions. Like, what do I need to know about this project I'm working on? And then just give it time. See what comes to you throughout that day or the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Or let's say you and I are going to have lunch. Well, probably sometime that morning, I would ask God, anything I need to know about having lunch with Rusty, what you may need, what would be important to say. Now, sometimes things come to me and sometimes they don't. But even when they don't, I am a different person when I'm with you because I'm already thinking about that in those terms.
Right.
I'm thinking about that more than the sushi.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sushi. I miss that. I don't eat it in Texas. It doesn't seem right. All right, Jan, let me ask you this. When you're talking about listening to God, there's those moments where I'm trying to listen to God and I think, okay, that idea that just popped in my head, is that God? Is that, just my conscience? Is that what my mom used to say to me when I was a kid? And I recognize God can use all those things, but you know what I'm trying to say here is sometimes we presuppose different ideas upon God or give God that label that he said it, when really it wasn't God. So how do you discern which is God's voice?
Well, there's two things that are really important. The first is you need to get well acquainted with the committee that lives in your head. And so when I talk about that, the committee members I found when I first started doing this, one was, Miss Picture Perfect, get it right. And so you think God is always telling you to get it right, do it right. Well, actually, God is much more concerned about who you're becoming than that you get everything right. God is concerned about you more than even what you do. And then I also had someone in my head who was just the opposite. She would argue with Picture Perfect, and she was like the kickback kid, like, you're doing fine, just coast. So then I'd go over there, and then most Christians have this I have a little firefighter's hat for this one, You need to help the world all the time, no matter who asks you. And then it kind of, after a while, it kind of turns into a pride thing. You want to do it better than anyone else has ever done it. And so you have all that going on. So being able to know who are the people that populate my head, what are the rooms I usually go to. So once you know that, when stuff comes to you, you go, oh, I see where that is. That's my little attitude police, correcting the world, correcting my friends, correcting myself. And so I know right away that's not it. And then the other thing is to become well acquainted with the kinds of things God said to people in Scripture. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole lot of reassurance in Scripture. Mm-hmm. Golly, Isaiah to Malachi, the phrase that's repeated when I read those through, and it took me 6 years because I was doing Lectio in the way, really trying to hear God, is return to me. God really wants you to turn around and notice and be with him. Because we get so distracted. So those kinds of things, God will sometimes, say to the Israelites, let's get up, let's go. Mm-hmm. And of course, then my response is, what is my next step? Mm-hmm. I find the two best questions to be asking God is, what do I need to know about whatever it is? And what is my next step?
That's really good.
Let me interrupt for just a moment. Did you know we have a YouTube channel? In fact, all of our podcasts are now recorded and placed on YouTube as well. So everyone to look at the person I'm talking to, now you can. Go to Pastor Rusty George on YouTube and subscribe. All right, back to our show.
So when it comes to practicing the presence of God on a daily basis, a lot of us tend to think that's a 15-minute quiet time in the morning or reciting the Lord's Prayer before dinner or whatever. You've given us a couple of really good questions there. How do you encourage people about how to, practice the presence of God?
Well, I do it a lot through the conversations I have with God, which I've just told you how those conversations go. But I think also Brother Lawrence had this prayer that he prayed throughout his workday. And you got to remember, he worked in a kitchen. This is not, what too many people consider holy work. And he said, God, since you are with me and it's your will that I apply my mind to these outward things, you want me to get the soup done. Help me to have the grace to keep company with you the whole time. And so, you ask God, I am out of chicken broth. What would be a good substitute? And you and God are making soup together. Mm-hmm. And you and God, I have to tell you, God has rescued me out of so many plumbing issues. And I just go, so what is my next step? And then something comes to me, God has reminded me of a new mop I brought. God is honest. I was so flabbergasted once. It's like, you have YouTube? Oh, right. That was the last thing that was in my head. I could go do that. So I think that is a big deal, but just noticing, the person in the grocery store who stops to talk to you or how much fun it was to help someone and to know that you and God are doing all these things together. You and God are changing your tire. You and God are figuring out, okay, what is the best thing to say to my teenager? Mm-hmm. And God honestly gives us really good ideas, but we need to ask and put it before him, and then just pay attention. Don't look for, lightning bolts and all that stuff, but just pay attention and to be able to hear what God would say. Archbishop William Temple said, "It is a great mistake to think that God is chiefly interested in religion." So God is interested in my composting, which I am experimenting with now. And God is interested in what kind of shoes my very skewed and injured feet need. God is chiefly interested in you, in what's in Rusty's heart, what he's thinking about for the next day. God is chiefly interested in you.